Hello and welcome to Tactically Sound. Today, Matt and I are talking about Skyrim because I'm realizing that there are 10 Skyrim details I somehow missed. I've been playing it recently, and you and I, Matt, previous to this, were playing Oblivion for the first time. And so I'm seeing Skyrim with new eyes, and I'm also kind of seeing how Starfield moved away from Skyrim mechanics. And yeah, I just wanted to talk really quickly about some of the finer details that I noticed, and we'll kind of share some stories from revisiting one of our favorite games. But also, you and I were not completionists when we played this game on PlayStation 3. Like, we were rushing through stuff, leaving lots on the table to be discovered.
Right.
And so I'm trying to right that wrong. I'm trying to pay attention to achievements.
Well, Spencer, you gotta leave something for the next time you come back, right? It's like you can't, when you go to a restaurant, you can't try everything on the menu. You'll never come back, right? So I think if you really love a game, at least for me, I try to not do everything because I know I'm going to come back to it. And Skyrim is one of those games for me. And it has even endless opportunities of replay value too, because of just the awesome modding community, which we won't talk today. We're just talking about vanilla Skyrim, right?
Yes. Yeah. We're talking about the things that the developers put in that we just missed because of, like you said, like there wasn't a desire to see every inch, every corner, you know?
Right.
And so now I'm trying to stretch my wings a little bit further and see a couple more things.
Totally.
Some of them are comedic. Some of them are aesthetic. Some of them are a little bit more ingrained in the systems. And the first one is a woman, a bard named Karita in the Tavern of Dawnstar. I was trying to go by quests, like miscellaneous quests, just like random stuff that they kind of prompt you early on in the game. And somehow I ended up at Dawnstar, and I ended up in this tavern, and she was playing the Djembe. She was playing her lute. She was singing songs and making intense eye contact with me, and it was hilarious. She's in Wind Peak Inn. So if you guys have ever met her before, please share your stories.
Wind Peak Inn, write it down, boys.
If you want intense eye contact from a bard in a tavern, then she will deliver you that eye contact that you are seeking. And this also reminded me of like the continuation from Oblivion, because as I was playing Oblivion, I always tell this story, but like there's a bay like where all the ships are loaded in, and there was just like 5 people singing different songs all at the same time. And so whenever I see someone singing, I try to stop and pay attention, like listen to the lyrics and enjoy the performance. And so that's just like the classic Skyrim vibes of the music being implemented in the game itself.
The entire town is being plagued by horrible nightmares.
Now, this next one is a companion I met named Erandur. I'd never met him before. Have you met Erandur before? He's like a dark elf
or Erandur? Yeah. I don't know.
Erandur sounds cooler. Very more Lord of the Rings.
Ooh, but Erandur.
He's got a great voice actor, and he has a cool quest that I had never played before about like dreams, and like there was this like orc raid happening, and there was magic and a magic barrier. It was really fun, a really well-paced level, and that's what I love about Skyrim is I feel like the level design is well-paced. Like there are a couple that I remember when Mo and I played where we're like, oh, this is a pretty long quest, but like this one was a really satisfying kind of off the beaten path Dawnstar quest. And I did, when he started following me after, I was like, oh shoot, I think he's my companion now, and like I have a dope warrior by my side. So that was really cool. What's cool is like with companions in Skyrim that I didn't notice before is when you give them gear, they start trying it on and like picking whatever I think they think is the best. I would love to know like what they determine is best, but like he just starts throwing on fits as you're sending him stuff rapidly. And I was like, that's really rewarding. And I didn't notice that in Starfield. I didn't notice them doing that in Starfield. Yeah. So,
well, that's cool. You found Erandur, because I know a lot of people. We just go for Lydia, Alia, Serena, but we all go for our waifus. You got Erandur. A hobo.
he's underrated. Like he really and when he swaps out the outfits, he looks like a badass. I was like, I'm glad to have this warrior by my side.
He's a dark elf, right?
Yeah,
very cool.
And he uses magic. He uses bows. Like seeing him fight with his bow and then switch to magic is really, really cool.
That was actually my first race I picked in Skyrim. Skyrim was my first Elder Scrolls game. I didn't I was telling you when we were going through Oblivion, that was my first time playing through that. And if you guys haven't checked that out, go check out our conversations about Oblivion. We really get into it, and you see some of my first time impressions.
Yeah, and talking about Oblivion, I do like Oblivion's leveling system. It feels like kind of pre-Skyrim kind of adjacent, but it's a little bit more, I don't know, it feels a little bit more like a classic RPG also. Right. Skyrim, it feels more intuitive, more like an action RPG, and the reward system is much more based or seems based on experience. And so I was playing that Dawnstar mission, and like in a couple of hours, I'd already leveled up twice, and we'll talk more about alchemy, but like there's ways you can in a dungeon implement alchemy right away, or like I was even enchanting like soul stones and like doing all this cool stuff and getting that dopamine rush that Skyrim gives you, where it's like not only are you leveling up the skill, but you're leveling up the character, and like you're seeing all this action happening in a short amount of time. That was incredibly rewarding. The other like funny time is when you get killed and then you level up, like you get hit by an axe and then it's like heavy armor increase and then you die. I was like, okay, I don't know if we need that dopamine rush right before we die. Do you feel like Skyrim's leveling system differs in the way the game feels for you compared to Oblivion and Starfield?
That's what I really, there's two things I noticed right off the bat with Oblivion, and it was how slow you level up. It feels more meaty in a way, like I really earned this level up, right? Similar to, I guess, how I feel with leveling up in Baldur's Gate. So it has a good feel, but yeah, you're right. This is just like kind of like, feeding that dopamine rush. And it's
kind of like
quick,
RPG cocaine.
Yeah. And I think there's a place for that, right? And I think they did well at nurturing that speed in this game. It doesn't feel too weird, other than those moments where you're dying and then it's like level up or no dun or whatever, how it the sound effect.
Yeah. So this is a more niche one, but something I've been nerding out with is the books. I think they sell a Skyrim physical book you could read with all the books in it, which would be cool. But I try to gameplay capture as many books as I can so I can go back and read them and cover them in games. One that I've covered from Morrowind and Oblivion was Firmament, and I found that in that Dawnstar dungeon, and just like flipping through it and be like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is a 1-for-1 of the previous versions, but it has a new graphical update. It's kind of like finding a new edition of the book with like new typography, new kind of like new illustrations and all that. That kind of continuity rewards you for going back and playing Oblivion or going back and playing Morrowind, and it immerses you in the world. And I think I'm starting to realize how connected these games really are. Like I don't think I ever really realized that. I always kind of thought, oh, each one is totally separate. Right. But the books serve as a cool lore thread between all of them. And now alchemy. So I was mentioning in the dungeon that I was doing alchemy like in between, like creeping through the halls. You had mentioned in our pre-convo that, you haven't really explored alchemy all the way.
Not like The Witcher 3. I'm a master potion crafter in as The Witcher, but I've never taken that I guess that interest and skill into this game. I know it's always been there, but I've always kind of leaned more towards crafting a new suit of armor or a new shield or a sword. So this is something you tell me about it.
Well, alchemy is fun because it's so immediate. It's like you go on a walk, you avoid fast travel, you go on a walk to your next quest, you're collecting butterflies, you're collecting any plant you see, you're collecting the bones of some animal or an elf ear, and then you just start eating it. and then you get the reward right away of seeing, oh, this has damage health, this has resist to fire, this has healing property. And so then when you get to an alchemy station, you plug that in and you just start making potions really quickly. And I love that feeling of like, and like now you have 20 potions. And then you're like, alchemy evolves.
Did you say you eat like the items?
Yeah, you eat the items to find out what they do.
I've never discovered this because I've never tried to eat these things.
yeah.
Like eating a butterfly?
If it shows up, if it shows up as an ingredient, you can eat it. And so it'll give you all these status effects. So you kind of do need to be careful that you don't poison yourself too much. But then you get the reward of seeing all the different things it's capable of doing. So then it works in these different recipes with other ingredients, and you can get different potion combinations. And so that's really a great way to level up quickly when you're in a dungeon. But the next one kind of ties into Fallout 3 because they were developing Skyrim towards the end of Fallout 3, and they snuck in their like cinematic death camera, and playing Oblivion, playing Starfield, it's not there, and it's like, man, I forgot how good this thing is. Like, it really adds to the gameplay, and I just missed how immersive it makes the game feel and how it has a really unique pace. It gives you that, whether it's like you have an axe and you swipe and then immediately it zooms out and you're like, oh, I think I'm going to dominate this guy right now. Yeah. And it gives you this sick animation.
Yes.
I love Starfield's combat, but I feel like something like this is something they should not just put away.
Yeah, I like how you said it. It's a callback to like Fallout 3. I think of the VATS, right? The critical system, right? And this is Elder Scrolls Skyrim's critical system. That it triggers when you do a critical hit, right? And so in a way, it's kind of interesting. I'm just thinking of this right now. It's like kind of like our forced VATS system on Skyrim, right? This is how we can incorporate critical in that look and that how exciting that feels in Fallout in this game. And I never looked at it that way. That's really cool to have that comparison for Fallout 3. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then the sound effects. Playing Oblivion, playing Starfield recently, I'm realizing that I think Skyrim nails the sound effects the best. Like, they have this same kind of comic booky, cartoony feel that Oblivion and Morrowind have, but they also have an element of like 3D realism. You were mentioning that the acoustics and the reverb, how it changes and adapts. So it's like, it's a modern system, but it has that fantastical element, that dopamine of, grabbing a bottle and be like, all those little tones and things that make you feel cozy. Like, it's a cozy game, but then when you do an axe swing, it's like really weighty and beefy. And I think that element of it really, it was like, oh, wow, I think that they need to go back to this and evaluate how they can keep that charm and that balance between realism and like more fantastical feel, and like their signature sound effects, kind of how Fallout, the TV show, used the Fallout game sound effects.
And
I think that's really important.
That is so important, Spencer. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's really why I fell in love with Elder Scrolls. I was like, this is what it would be like if real life was fantastical in a medieval Norse fantasy way. And there's that element of, I always felt like Xbox, right? Xbox games had an element of realism, mature gameplay. And Elder Scrolls was a perfect way to introduce and combine both of those worlds of fantasy and realism. Last week we were talking about immersive sims. That was a really good episode. And we were talking about how, we feel like they are only going an inch deep and a couple miles wide, and they're just keep going miles and miles and miles more wide. I think this is where they need to go a little bit more deeper, is how can we grow on that perception of high fantasy realism, dark fantasy realism, right? And showcase even like the power of the consoles that we're playing on right now with graphics and like we were talking about sound effects and all this kind of stuff. but also the things we were talking about in last week's episode with going deeper with immersive sim stuff. That was cool.
Right. Yeah. And, again, playing it after a long time, coming from Oblivion, where you were mentioning Oblivion is a little bit more difficult and leveling up is harder.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to rely solely on being a stealth archer in Oblivion, and bringing some of that mechanic into it, even some Starfield combat tricks that I use. I'm now starting to notice like I'm better at Skyrim than I was before. And I'm poisoning every blade tip. I'm using scrolls to paralyze really powerful orc warriors, and I'm adding fire to my bows by enchanting them. And suddenly I'm like, I was using not all of the mechanics given to me when I first played.
Me too. I felt like, you come from games where, there's forced mechanics. Like you are, an assassin in Assassin's Creed. You only could do these types of combat, right? And so in my brain going into this game, I'm like, oh, I gotta pick if I'm gonna use a sword, if I'm gonna use a bow, and that's all I can use, right? And I think a lot of people felt this way, and the enemies were tough, and you get all those critical bonuses if you are a stealth archer, and it just made the game easier for a lot of us. And now that we've played a little bit more video games, I've played some Souls-likes as well. I know you have too. And with those games challenge your thinking and strategy and tactics, right? And whoever thought that action RPGs can have tactics, right? So, but now we are leveraging that game literacy, right? And inside Skyrim, and now I'm realizing, like, you know what? I'm not necessarily being forced into a stealth archer corner when I play now. I'm kind of being forced into being just the almighty powerful dragonborn, like, using melee, using my healing magic, then I'm shooting some fireballs, and then now I'm shooting you with my bow, jumping all around like a crazy maniac on the mountains, and then my screams, of course, right? And passive abilities. There's so much in this game to leverage. And then, I didn't even mention everything you said with like scrolls and all those kind of tactics too. So you're just kind of like this ultimate warrior in this game. And I think that's really how they want you to play.
Right. Yeah, it's like playing into that Viking fantasy. I know they were inspired by Conan and stuff like that. But the other one for me is Dawnguard. I really don't think I've played. There's like an entire story add-on that I'm going to be playing for the first time. So I just wanted to mention that. So that'll definitely be an episode that we'll cover. And
that's
I'm excited
my favorite DLC. I'm shocked you haven't started it. What happened, Spencer?
I think, PlayStation 3, I don't know if my version had Dawnguard implemented at that point.
Maybe not.
And then on the Switch, I just don't think I ever triggered it, because I was showing Mo, like, she was picking where to go. It was her first time playing. So I think we just happened to miss it on the Switch. So that will be fun. And kind of like how you are, that's how I am with DLC. I'm like, I always like to leave some DLC for later. Like, let me wait a little bit longer so I have something special
to chew on later.
Experience. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Finally,
I like it.
You and I both, we have not been married before in Skyrim. And so I'm hoping to change that for the first time and meet all the companions first of all. But yeah, well, let's figure out what marriage looks like in Skyrim. I don't know how my Dragonborn character will do being married, being tied down to commitment in such a vast world.
Who are the Dragonborn types in Skyrim? We need to find them. Who's attracted?
Right, exactly.
Who's attracted to this?
But those are our 10 Skyrim details I somehow missed. So let us know if you guys play like we do, where you kind of leave some experiences for later, or if you try to see it all once when you're there. And tell us some details that you've recently noticed that you somehow didn't see before. So Matt, where can they follow along?
You can follow me on YouTube and Instagram at JumbyJumbwa, JumbyJumbwa. See you guys there.
Sweet. And if you're not subscribed to the Yetti Den, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. Talk to you later. Bye.